Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Google Digital Garage. Just before we get properly started, just want to make sure everyone can see and hear me okay. If you're having any problems with your image or your sound or your signal or anything like that, the best thing you can do is just refresh the page, hit the button at the top of the screen. That usually fixes most of our issues. And if you're still having problems, then if you go to the bottom right-hand corner of the YouTube video, you should be able to see a little cog. If you click on that, you can get to your YouTube settings and adjust those to make sure that everything is working okay. So hopefully you can all see me and hear me, and I can say hello and welcome to the Google Digital Garage. My name is Zoe. I'm one of the trainers for Google's free skills training program, the Google Digital Garage, and I am here to talk to you today about social media strategy. So a little bit about myself. My background is in digital marketing. I've been working in marketing for nearly 10 years now. In that time, I've worked for big agencies, I've worked for small agencies, I've worked for myself, and I currently run my own little agency with my partner. So I've had a lot of different experience working with different clients, and a big part of any kind of marketing nowadays is always going to be social media and understanding how to get yourself out there and how to use it. So that's what I'm going to talk to you today about. I'm going to share a little bit of my expertise and hopefully teach you all about social media. I'm not on my own, of course. I am being joined by Francois. Now, Francois is in the chat. He is our moderator today. And what he will be doing is talking to you guys, answering your questions, asking you some questions, and sharing some links when we come to links that would be useful for you guys to have. If you do have any questions throughout the session, you can always go to the live chat. Usually it's on the right-hand side of the video, and you can pop your question in the chat. Francois is going to be there to answer your questions, but also there are going to be some that are going to be maybe a little bit too complicated, too detailed to fully get into. I think he's only got 200 characters to really use to answer your questions. So if there are some he thinks that would be better for me to answer, he's going to pass them over to me. And we're going to have some question breaks throughout the session so I can take a look at those questions and see if there's anything I need to answer. So if you are confused about something, if you're not sure about something, if you're wondering how something applies to you and your business, please feel free to pop it in the chat and we will try our absolute hardest to answer that for you. The only other thing that I have to say, I think, to get things going is that just to remember that we do have a ton of other Google Digital Garage webinars that are free and available for all of you to access. Now, there should be a link in the video description that will take you to all of our YouTube webinars. All of our upcoming webinars, and you can take a look at that and see what is coming up. As I said, they're all completely free. They are all just like this one. They're all available on YouTube and live streamed, and they're available on a wide range of subjects. So take a look at those to see if there's anything more we can help you out with and anything more you can learn. Today we've got three main topics, three main sections to our presentation. The first is to use social media to help grow a business. We're going to look at how it can do that. You know, what's the point of social media? Why is it so useful? Then we're going to look at the actual process of building that social media strategy. That's going to be the bulk of our presentation today. And then finally, we're going to learn some tips, some tools, some tricks, just some little ways that you can tweak your social media to be just that little bit more effective. Now, before I fully get started, I want to just point out that we do have free one-to-one mentoring available from Google. You can chat to a digital garage trainer just like myself for a whole hour, and we can talk to you about anything that you want to talk about, whether that is getting online or marketing your business or getting started with analytics, whatever you need help with. Now, at the minute, it's only available to small businesses or charities working out of the UK. But if you work for a small business, if you work for a charity, you can access this free one-to-one mentoring session. The link right there on the screen is g.co/UK mentoring. And I'm sure Francois will share that in the chat as well. Do take advantage of it. It is a really, really good service. We can help you out with all sorts of things about your business. So take a look. And hello to everyone as well. I'm looking at the chat. I can say hi to Mary, to Murad. Hi to Prime Minister from India. Hello from Tunisia as well. Welcome. It's great to see when we've got people joining us from around the world, from different countries. It's wonderful to see you here. I hope this is really useful for you, and I'm excited to get started. So, how can social media help to grow a business? Pretty obviously, pretty clearly, we'll hopefully know that a lot of people are on social media. Now, again, these are UK statistics, but they're pretty similar in most other countries. We've got 44 million people using social media actively. That means signing in on a regular basis in the UK. Now, 44 million people is about 2/3 of our population. 2/3 of all the people inside the UK are on social media. And when you consider as well that that population includes people like babies or small children who are way too young to use social media, as well as older people who may be less likely to be on social media, then when you take that into account, that's a huge majority of kind of working age people, of adults, are on social media on an active basis. Among UK adults, YouTube is the most popular platform. 85% of UK adults are active users of YouTube, and 78% are active users of Facebook. That's different depending on where you come from. I know that for example, in India, I think Facebook is more popular. I know that WhatsApp is very popular in different countries, more so than the UK. I know that Twitter is different in different countries as well. But in general, the vast majority of most adults around the world are in some way users of social media. Now, the average amount of time spent on social media per day is 1 hour and 54 minutes. Now, you might be looking at that figure and thinking, well, that's loads of time. There's no way I would spend 1 hour and 54 minutes on social media. If you're like me, you'll be looking at that and thinking, yeah, I definitely spend more than 1 hour and 54 minutes on social media each day. To be fair, it is my job, but also I definitely spend more than that time just for my own socializing. It is obviously an average. So that there are going to be people who use social media for much more, people who use social media much less. But we can see that people are using social media and they're using it consistently and for a long, long time. That alone is a good enough reason to get started on social media. As a business, you want to be where your customers are, and we can see that the vast majority of people are indeed on social media. So it would be foolish. It wouldn't be that wise not to be on social media, knowing that that's where your customers are. Now, there are a range of different things that social media can do for your business. There are ways it can generate sales. So, for example, generating sales, reaching new audiences is a big thing. Remember, you've got the vast majority, it's up to 84% of the UK adult population is on some social media platform. So that's a huge proportion of people, millions and millions and millions of people that you would maybe struggle to reach without using social media. The big benefit of social media is that you can connect with anybody around the world, but even just within your own country. It used to be that if you had a shop, you would open up, or if you had a business, you would open up that business, you'd have a physical location, and then people would see it as they walked by. Or you put out some flyers or a billboard and people nearby would see it. And it would limit the number of people who could do business with you, because they would tend to have to be within, pretty close to you to know that you exist. Now, with social media, we can connect to people across the length and breadth of our countries. And that means we can reach them in ways that we've never been able to reach them before. You can create new opportunities through new methods of communication. You can really connect with your audience in a way that you wouldn't be able to with sort of physical advertising. You can even target specific types of customer. If you want to create an advert that's only seen by 23-year-old single men living in cities who are interested in cricket. You can absolutely target that specific audience. You can create that ad that only gets shown to people who match that profile. So you can be really specific about who is seeing your message, and that means that you can be more specific about what your message is. And of course, you can build relationships, you can network with people, you can create little communities, which you can then use to market your business, to sell your product or your service. You know, you might have a really specific niche that you fill. You might have a really niche audience. Social media lets you reach that audience and gather them together in an online community. And that's all part of adding value to your brand. When we say adding value, we mean making people see your brand as more valuable, more useful to them. So, for example, customer service levels. Your brand is going to be much more valuable to your consumers if they know with 100% certainty that if they have an issue, they can go to you on social media and get it sorted out quickly without them ever having to talk on the phone to a real person, because that takes time. You know, if you have a phone conversation, you have to have that conversation. You have to sit down, you have to be on that phone call. With a social media conversation, you can quickly type up a comment, leave it, and then walk away and then come back later. It's much quicker for users, so it's much more convenient. So by raising your customer service levels by using social media, people will see your brand as more valuable. In the same way, we can start conversations. Remember, it's two-way. So you're not only talking to your audience is talking to you, and you can have that conversation with them. That's much more valuable to your audience, to your customers, than just static messages that aren't two-way, that are just that one-way message. You can show a new side to your business. You can show your audience why you are so valuable to them. And of course, you can build your own community, like I mentioned. You can come up with a group of people, an actual community that you can utilize, and that will be your audience, that will be your sort of captive audience, and be your advocates as well. People who love your product and love your service and are willing to market for you by things like reviews. And of course, speaking of marketing, it is just practically better for marketing. It can help you get noticed on search. You know, think how many times you've Googled something or searched for something, and what's come up has been a tweet or a social media profile. You know, being present on these different areas of the internet means you're more likely to be discovered on the internet. And of course, social media is a funnel into your website as well. You know, people who've never heard of you before might stumble across you on social media, and from there they can find your website and they can come onto your website and then hopefully make a purchase. Now, something that's often underlooked is the insights that you can get from social media. You can get really, really valuable insights from social media because it will give you some data on who your audience is, and that's incredibly useful. Because if you know who your audience is, you know their demographics and their interests, you can market to them even more effectively. And last but not least, you can, of course, use social media to see what your competitors are doing, to see what it is that they are using on social media. Is there anything that they're doing that you're not? Is there anything that you are doing that they're not? And is there anything that they're not doing that you could maybe do? Is there a niche that maybe they're not filling? All of these are ways that you can use social media to really boost your marketing and become better at what you do. So some questions to ask yourself when we're just getting started here. And these are really common questions that we get. You might find these very familiar. What kind of updates should you post? That's probably the most common question I get asked about social media. We'll hopefully answer all of these throughout the session. Are your posts driving people to your website? Of course, we want to know that. If your aim is to get people onto your website, then there's not much point in being on social media if doing so isn't actually getting people to your website. So if it's not doing that, we need to change something. We need to work out why are people not coming to your website. When is the best time to engage with your audience? People are online at different times of the day. So, it's no use if I decide to make a social media post and I send it out at 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, is my audience going to be online and reading social media at 3 o'clock in the morning? Some of them might be, but probably I'm missing out there. Whereas if I were to post that at maybe right now, about 10:15, when people are up and they're ready and they're maybe at work or they've maybe dropped the kids off at school, well, that's a great time to post because that people are more likely to be online. And of course, who are my more influential followers? Which of my followers maybe would help me get more traction, more attention, more following if they were to do some marketing for me? We'll talk about influencer marketing a bit later. And remember, just a few tips before we get started with the actual building the strategy. Number one, your attention spans for your audience are really short. It's thought that generally our attention span on average is about 8 seconds. So if you were to start, reading an article, you'd have about 8 seconds before you decided whether or not you were going to keep reading or whether you were going to stop. It's about the amount of time you can hold someone's attention for without giving them a reason to carry on. On social media, however, some people think, well, actually, the attention span is even shorter. It's actually 3 seconds because people are scrolling and it's so easy to scroll. If you don't grab people's attention with your post straight away, they're just going to scroll past. So remember that as well. Remember, there's lots of competition. Yes, there are millions of people on social media, and a lot of those people are your competitors. So be careful and watch out for that. Remember, it's not always free. It can be a really good idea to pay for advertising. It can help you reach new audiences that you wouldn't be able to reach before. Ultimately, these social networks are businesses and they want to earn money. And so sometimes they work better if you pay. Not going to get into whether that's morally right or not, but certainly something like Facebook, actually, it's quite hard at the minute to grow organically on Facebook, to grow without paying, because Facebook really wants you to pay. And so if you do pay for ads, you might find that you get a huge boost in followers and visitors to your website because that's what Facebook really is set up for. And last but not least, remember, once something is public, it is public. You might say something that you regret and take the post down, but you don't know if someone has screenshotted that post. And you see this all the time on Twitter, on Facebook. You can see what people have said something. They've realized that it's maybe offensive or maybe not what they meant. And they've tried to take it down. Or maybe it is that they knew full well that it was offensive, but they just got a bit more criticism for it than they expected. They've tried to delete it, but by that point, people have seen it. They've taken screenshots of it. It's now on the web permanently. So you have to be careful. Make sure you're not posting anything unless you 100% definitely mean to post that thing and you know that you're going to be happy with that post. So we've got our first pause for questions. I can see we've got a question from Valeria. Will there be a practical exercise on strategy? So the next stage we're going to go through, Valeria, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, by the way, and sorry to anyone if I'm mispronouncing anyone's name. The section we're about to go through now is going to be the step-by-step process of building a strategy. So obviously, if we were face-to-face, it would be a lot easier. We'd do more practical exercises where I'd sort of set you a task and we'd let you to go about doing that task, and I'd come around and help. But obviously, because we're online, it's a little harder to do that. So we're going to take you through step-by-step the process of building a strategy. And there are going to be some sort of homework questions, things that you can do as next steps after this presentation that will hopefully help you. But yeah, we've done sort of that section was the theory. Now we're going to get into the practice of this is how you go about building that strategy. So hopefully that will be a nice sort of practical exercise for you. Yeah, looks like that's all of our questions as well. So let's move on to the next section, which is how to build a social media strategy that I've been able to foreshadow thanks to Valeria's question. Brilliant. So how do we actually go about building a social media strategy? Well, we do it in 5 steps. And these 5 steps are what we're going to go through today, bit by bit. We're going to start by defining our audience. Then we're going to move on to working out what our business goals are. Then we are going to pick our platforms. Now, I'm going to go through each of the main social media platforms in a little bit of detail and sort of explain what's good about them, what's bad about them. So that's going to be quite a big section. And then we're going to look at finding your tone of voice and working out what success looks like. A big thing that often gets sort of missed here, you might notice that we're not choosing our social media platforms until the third step. And that is very deliberate and it's a mistake that a lot of people make, is that they start by choosing their social media platforms. They go, well, okay, I really like using Instagram, so I'm going to set up an Instagram account. And then they start looking at their audience and their business goals and the tone of voice and so on and so forth. The problem there is, what if your audience isn't on Instagram? Or what if your business goals don't align with Instagram? What if actually you'd be better off using Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn? That's why we do the audience and the goals first, because we really want to make sure we understand who are we talking to and what are we hoping to achieve on social media, and then we can pick a social platform that matches both of those things. So let's go straight on to defining your audience. Your audience is going to be quite varied. A lot of you will probably have a good idea of who your target audience is just from your business. A lot of people, when they set up their business, they do so because they know who their audience is. Their product is for a specific person or group of people. If you haven't done this, it's really, really worth doing so. I want you all to think about this as we go through this for your own business. So who is your audience? And when we say who are they, we'll start with the demographics. So are they more male or more female? Are they young? Are they old? What's their average age? Where are they located? Are they more located in cities, in suburbs, in the countryside? We're looking at the very basic things here. They're sort of their name, their age, their location. What are they into? What are they interested in? Now, obviously, they're going to be interested in your product, but can we work out? And a lot of this is going to be educated guesswork. And remember, your audience doesn't have to remain as like one set monolithic thing. If you decide, well, okay, I thought my audience was this, but as we've moved on, we've realized actually our audience is different, that's fine. Change your target audience. None of this has to be set in stone. But certainly when we start out, we're going to make some educated guesswork and try and work out who they are, so that we've got something to work off. So what are they into? What are they interested in? Yes, your product, but what else? If you're selling coats for dogs, I just bought my dog a new coat, which is why I'm thinking about that. If you're selling coats for dogs, well, you know that your audience is interested in dogs, but more than that, they obviously care about their dog quite a lot. They're willing to pay money just to make sure that they're warm enough. So they would probably consider themselves a pet lover. Maybe they care about other animals as well. If they've got a dog, they probably enjoy walking. A lot of people get a dog so that they can have someone to walk on a regular basis. Dogs are quite often a family pet, so they might have a family. If they've got if they're buying a dog coat, it might be because they've got a new dog. So maybe they're a new family, maybe they're a young family, or maybe they're a sort of a millennial couple who doesn't have children but has a pet. We're making a lot of educated guesses here. Some of them are probably going to be wrong, but we can think about these things. And this is also maybe where we start dividing up our audience and we realize, okay, part of my audience is people with people who have bought a dog for their children, for example. Part of my audience is that family, and part of my audience are couples maybe without a family, but who have a dog instead. Rather than having a family, they've chosen to have a pet. So those are two different sort of audience groups. So we can maybe start dividing up our audience. It's not a good idea to divide your audience up too much, but if you've got two clear groups like that, it's a good idea to split them up. So who or what influences them? What newspapers do they read? Where do they get their news? Who do they watch on YouTube? Who are they interested in online? And then we can look at when are they usually online, and we can have a think about this. So, for example, if somebody has school-age children, they're likely to be active online just after they've dropped their children off at school and just before they pick them up. So usually about sort of 9 to 10 o'clock in the morning and about 2:30 to 3 in the afternoon. Those tend to be big spikes in activity for people with school-age children. So if you think that that's your audience, well, then that's something to consider. And of course, which social media do they use? Yeah, where are they online? What networks are they actually using? In terms of how we go about getting the answers to this, because I did mention educated guesswork, and that is a really useful thing to do. Like you're not going to know all of the answers here. Again, a lot of this is going to be making smart guesses and then testing to see if that's right, and then working out how correct you were. But certainly to start with, talk to your audience members. You know, especially if you're either on social media, but if you have a physical shop as well, you could maybe chat to the people who come in and try and understand, like, who are they? Get a sense of the kind of person who comes to your shop. Think about the people who might be most attracted to what you have to offer. Again, if I'm selling coats for dogs, I'm going to be selling to pet owners, people who have dogs that they care enough about to buy a coat for. So there's already a group of people there, and we can maybe do some Google searches and go, okay, well, what's the average age of a dog owner? What's the average dog owner like? What other interests do they have? You would be surprised how much data there is out there on things like this. People do surveys like this all the time that they make public and that you can use to work out, well, who is my audience? But of course, you can build your own survey. You know, it's unlikely that people will fill it out just for the sake of it. But maybe if you offer, you know, you can have a 10% discount on your next visit if you fill out this survey. And all you can ask is, who are you? What are you interested in? What YouTubers do you watch? Where do you get your news from? Things like that. And then you'd be able to work out who your audience is. Once you get going on social media, you can then get so much more information from the social media itself. So each platform will have its own analytics, which is just data. It'll have its own way of looking at the data that it produces from the people who follow you or like your page. So, for example, Facebook Page Insights, it will tell you, okay, this is the age breakdown of your audience. This is the gender breakdown of your audience. These are the posts that they engage the most with. Then you've got hard data you can use to, again, modify who you think your audience is. Obviously, this is something that you can do later on. It's not something you can do at the beginning necessarily. Although if you do already have a social media page set up, you might be able to get some of this data to start with. But certainly when you get going with your strategy and it starts working, you can use this data to refine your idea of your audience. Then we need to define your goals. Now, this is a part that I get really sort of picky about, because the third goal on there says generate more sales. And I would argue that that is the goal of literally every business. Pretty much every single business exists to make money. You know, you might have a sort of a non-profit organization or a charity where the goal isn't to make money, but the goal is to do good work. And for that, you need donations. So your goal will still be to generate donations. I think that's just too broad a goal. I think that's no use. What you need to be doing is really getting more defined about how you're going to generate those sales. Because again, everyone wants sales, everyone wants donations, everyone wants money. How are you going to actually get it? What is it that's preventing you from getting those sales right now? Is it that not enough people know that you exist? If that's the case, then you need better brand awareness. And that can be your goal, because that gives you a lot more direction as to what you can do online than just getting more sales does. Is it maybe that lots of people are aware that you exist? Maybe you've got loads and loads of followers on social media, but not many of them are actually going onto your website and making a purchase. Well, in that case, your goal is to get more people onto your site. Maybe you're finding that people aren't buying your product because you don't have many reviews. You don't have many people who've already bought it and are saying that it's good, so people don't know whether to trust it or not. Well, in that case, maybe you want to connect with influencers. So really do think about what it is that's preventing you from getting sales at the minute, so that you can then work out what your goal can be, rather than just going with generate more sales as a goal, because again, I just don't think that is specific enough. So set one social media goal, and let's do this together. So I want you to think about what it is you want to achieve. Again, is it awareness? Is it engagement? Is it getting more people to your website? This is the discover stage. We're working out, right, what is it that the actual goal is and how can it help your business? Once we've discovered that goal, now we can move on to the next stage, which is define. So again, work along with me on this one. If your goal is to get more brand awareness, what barriers exist that are preventing that from happening? So maybe you're starting off with a really small social media presence, and not enough people know that you exist in the first place. And because not a lot of people know you exist, your social media posts aren't being seen by many people, and you're struggling to grow. So maybe it's that lack of growth that is the barrier to you. Again, really have a think, really, set this down on paper and work out what are the barriers, what's getting in the way of you achieving your goals. The next step is to develop the goal, and that is to work out what do you need to achieve that goal. Maybe you need consistent social media posts, or maybe you need influencer attention, or maybe you just need more followers. And then we can look at deliver. And deliver is working out, is going back and looking at those barriers and working out, well, how can we mitigate them? How can we get past the barriers in order to get what you need to achieve the goal? So if you have realized that the reason why you've not got much brand awareness is because you've got a really small social media audience, well, one way to mitigate that might be to pay for ads, because that will get you seen by people who don't already follow you or don't currently follow you. And that means you can reach a wider audience, and hopefully those people will then follow you, and then you'll have a boosted organic audience that you can then post towards, and that will help you grow quicker. So think about using this framework when it comes to setting your goals. Step 3 is to choose your channels. There are a lot of different channels you could choose from. We're only going to look at the biggest ones, the most common ones, but certainly there are plenty of channels that you could use. So starting off, are your audience, are they businesses or are they people? Do you market towards other businesses or do you market towards customers? Because that's going to change which platform is going to be the most relevant to you. Again, where is your audience? What social networks do they use? It is always a good idea to start with one social network rather than going all out and trying 2 or 3 or 4. If you start out thinking, right, I need to be on 2, 3, 4, 5 social networks, all that's going to happen is you're not going to have time to keep up with all of that posting. And those social networks are going to get neglected. It is much, much, much better to start with one and really understand how it works, and really get to know it and do the absolute best you can with it. And then maybe in the future, when you feel like you've got everything you can, you know everything there is to know about Facebook or Instagram or whichever one you chose, then you can maybe add another social network. So always start with one, test it, learn before you go on to another. Because different channels need different strategies. The same post on Facebook will not do very well on Instagram, but a really good post on Instagram would do terribly on Twitter. They have different qualities to them. They are different things that the audience is expecting. So we need different strategies. So let's look at each of the social networks in turn. And we're only going to look at the main ones, as I mentioned, but we're going to start with Twitter. Now, Twitter is in a very weird place at the minute, because it was bought out at the end of last year by Elon Musk. Some of you will know that name, who is at one point was the richest person in the world. And And I don't think I'm being too opinionated by saying he doesn't seem to be doing a very good job of managing it. So Twitter is losing a lot of audience members, losing a lot of advertisers, and a lot of changes are being made to Twitter that do make some of this maybe not work as well. So just bear that in mind. However, it is still a good PR tool. The point of Twitter has always been to allow brands and journalists and sort of verified individuals to talk to their audience, so you can get that sort of quick fire information. As a result of that, it's really good for PR. It's really good for quick, simple posts that hopefully will get a lot of engagement. Now, if you're going to use Twitter, it's worth using the different tools that are available. For example, polls are a really useful tool that Twitter allows. Means that you know there's an example of a poll on the right hand side there from the Dollar Shave Club. Means you can ask your audience questions and they can engage with that content, which is really useful. Make sure you again remember it's a two-way street, so make sure you are also retweeting the content that you see that you really like from other people, and make sure that you're liking and replying to content as well. You know, again, the more that you engage with other people, the more visibility you will get on Twitter. And you do also have a pinned tweet available, which means that you can pin a tweet at the top of your profile so that it doesn't get lost in all of your tweets. And that means that your most important tweet will always be at the very top of your profile. You can use that to display messages, offers, things like that. Yeah, the downsides of Twitter, of course, is that it is changing pretty rapidly. It looks like they might be getting rid of the sort of legacy verification thing. So it used to be that Twitter was a place where you could go and you could see a company and you would know that that company is definitely who they say they were because they have a little blue tick next to the name which shows that they have been verified as the genuine account of that company. Recently, Twitter has introduced paid blue ticks, so people can just pay and get a tick, which isn't great. Again, I'll be honest. It does mean that there's a lot of trust being lost in Twitter. If I'm honest, I would probably recommend not going on Twitter right now if you're just getting started until things sort of calm down with it and it kind of all of the changes stop being made. But it kind of hangs in the balance a little bit at the minute. But if you're already on Twitter and you already have a decent audience, there's no need to leave just yet. You can stay on Twitter as long as it's working for you, and it can still be a really good marketing tool. Facebook is one of the absolute behemoths of the tech world. Facebook is a gigantic social network. It's one of the biggest in the world. You can use Facebook as a little bit of a business directory. So you can have your business information, your opening hours, your contact details, things like that. People use about 25% of people use Facebook as a search engine to find businesses. So rather than going to Google or Bing or Yahoo, they will go to Facebook and they'll search for a business there. It's generally a good idea to have a Facebook page and at least make sure the information on it is accurate, even if you're not really posting anything, just because people will be looking for you on Facebook. So it's worth having, again, things like your opening hours, your contact details, things like that. You can have a call to action button on there as well, which can take them to your website, but also can be taking them to your contacts, taking them to your Facebook shop, because you can actually sell things through Facebook. Facebook is a really good social network for connecting with people, and specifically it's great for asking questions of your audience. If you ask your audience a question, the idea is that they will then hopefully reply to it. People like answering questions about themselves. So if you use Facebook to ask questions, to be really interactive with your audience, there's a chance that you'll get more engagement and you'll grow more organically. So Facebook can work really well for that. And it's also a really good place for those online communities that we mentioned. Creating your own little Facebook group and connecting people through Facebook. It can be really good for that in a way that other social networks maybe don't work that way. The disadvantages of Facebook, it is very hard to grow organically. If you are using Facebook, you're probably going to have to at some point pay for ads. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard to grow your audience. But again, most people are on Facebook, so it is a place where you can connect with a very, very large audience. Instagram, another absolute behemoth of social media. Instagram is obviously an incredibly visual social network. It's all about photos and videos. What you want with Instagram, you want a consistent brand vision. You should be able to look at any photograph that comes on your Instagram profile and immediately be able to see, oh, okay, that's coming from this account. And I can tell immediately because of the style of image. If you can see in the example on the screen, you can, even if you can't see the images that great, you can tell that they all have a pretty consistent look and feel to them. That is a really key way of succeeding on Instagram. Instagram also uses hashtags a lot, probably more than any other social network at the minute. Hashtags are how people who don't follow you find your content. And the key thing there is you want to use, I would usually say use around 10 hashtags per post. And you just want them to be really relevant to what you have posted. So, again, if I've made a picture of my dog, I might use hashtag dog, hashtag dogs of Instagram, hashtag puppy, hashtag Staffy, because that's the breed of dog that he is, things like that. And by doing that, I'm allowing people who want to see other content like that to find me. So it's a really good way of growing an audience organically. Again, probably the best social network at the minute for growing an audience organically. And again, make sure you're following other people as well. There are lots of influencers on Instagram. It's worth following them and engaging with them in their comments so that they can maybe learn that you exist and maybe become an influencer for your product or your service. LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the professional social network. It is all about thought leadership. It's all about your own brand. It is very good for business to business marketing. If you're marketing to other businesses, LinkedIn is probably the best place to go. It's also great for recruitment. So if you're looking for new staff members, remember that's another thing you can use social media marketing for, is hiring people and finding the people who would be good fits for your company. If you want to get a lot of traction on LinkedIn, thought leadership content is the way to go. And that is content where you're saying, here is what we do. Here is our philosophy about this thing. And here's why you should share it. What I'm doing right now is thought leadership content. I'm saying, this is the way that I think you should use social media. And here's why I think that. I'm trying to persuade you to my way of thinking. That's basically what thought leadership is. It's persuading your audience to your way of thinking. So you need to think about, right, what is it that your audience might be interested in knowing? What expertise do you have that you can offer? Obviously, I've been working in marketing for a long time, so my thought leadership would be about marketing. But is there anything else that you can maybe offer? Maybe lessons you've learned from a hobby that you could use in your business, for example. And then we have YouTube. Now, YouTube, people don't often think about it as a social network, but it absolutely is. In the same way that Instagram is a social network for sharing pictures, YouTube is a social network for sharing videos. And of course, it has the function to create your own account, to comment on people's videos, to like their videos, to like each other's comments, things like that. So it has all of the aspects of a social network. If you are going to use YouTube as part of your social media strategy, again, you want to be a thought leader. You want to be offering people a unique perspective. What can you provide that other people aren't currently providing? Is there something that you could mention, that you could talk about, that other people maybe aren't talking about? Think about creating useful videos for your audience. Think about what they want. It doesn't have to be thought leadership. For example, I go to YouTube whenever I need to do something practical. So if there's a recipe I want to cook, or if there's some DIY I want to do, I would go to YouTube for that. So if you sell something to do with cooking or DIY or carpentry or something practical, it might be worth putting videos on your YouTube channel explaining how to use your products. or how people could use your products in the process of their day-to-day life, because that would be very useful for them. And then you will find that you will get more growth and more attention as a result of that. So that's step 3, choosing your social media platform. Again, we've not covered all of them. There's TikTok, which is becoming enormous right now. There's Snapchat, there's WhatsApp, there's all sorts of different social networks, and there are, of course, new ones growing all the time. Those are just the sort of the main ones at the minute. Now, in terms of your brand's social voice, then, and once you've chosen a social network, what you now need to do is work out, well, what is my brand going to sound like online? What's it going to look like online? What are your brand guidelines? And that is, so first of all, it's things like, where are you going to put your logo? What fonts are you going to use? What colors are you going to use in things like your images or your infographics? But also, what is your tone of voice going to be? How are you going to speak on social media? And we'll look into that in a second. It is a good idea to have a list of do's and don'ts, and this can be as specific as specific words. So do say this word, but don't say this word. An example that we give in another presentation is a hypothetical Italian restaurant that doesn't say hi. That's a don't. They will not say hi to people, but they will say ciao, because that's more authentic. So that's part of their do's and don'ts for their tone of voice. It can be a really good idea to create those. And of course, as well, think about the style of images. We've mentioned for Instagram, it's really important to have a consistent style. But yeah, on Facebook, on Twitter, it can be good to have a good style, a consistent style as well. Now, in terms of your tone of voice, think about how you are going to sound. Are you going to be friendly or provocative? Are you going to be fun or serious? Are you going to be formal or casual? Are you going to be welcoming? Are you going to be knowledgeable? I would pick 3 adjectives that describe your business. I am likable. I am knowledgeable. I am friendly. There we go. 3 adjectives that I can use to describe me and my business. By doing that, I now have a good idea of what kind of language I would use on social media. So really do have a think about this. We do have, I can't remember what the name of the session is. We do, I think it's writing on social media. It's completely gone out of my mind at the minute, but we do have a session specifically on this. Or it might be build your personal brand online. I can't remember, but we do have a session that goes into this in a lot more detail. So do check out our other webinars, because if you're confused about this, there are some other options. Here's an example of some tone of voice. This is the This Girl Can campaign that was big in the UK a few years ago. If we were to describe this campaign, it's provocative. It's not friendly. It's not fun, but it is a little bit humorous. You know, sweating like a pig, feeling like a fox. It's a little bit cheeky there. It's the importance of this is to be provocative. It's to say, to challenge your expectations. It's to say, look at what women can do. Let's rethink the way that we judge women. You know, under these gloves is a beautiful manicure. Just because somebody does something physical like boxing or kickboxing doesn't mean that they don't look after their nails. They can still be feminine and do something like kickboxing. I love that. I've got a manicure and I'm going to kickboxing later. So, you know, I also know the offside rule. We're challenging those stereotypes. The idea that you can be sweating like a pig, feeling like a fox. You don't have to be delicate and feminine. You can be active. You can enjoy yourself, and there's nothing non-feminine about that. I think this is a really important message, and it gets it across by being quite bold and provocative, not being gentle about it. So again, think about the different ways you could use language in your social media. Finally, step 5, define success. How will you know when you have succeeded at your goal? Here are some examples on the screen. Growth in sales, growth in traffic to your website, improvement in your review score, your star rating, increased number of mentions on social media. All of these could be indicators that your social media has been successful. And of course, do consider paying, as we've mentioned. If you pay for social media ads, you can reach a wider audience. Especially if your goal is growth or sales, ads can be a really useful tool. This isn't just me saying that that you should advertise so that Google gets money. Google doesn't get any money from Facebook ads, doesn't get any money from Twitter ads or YouTube ads. Oh no, it probably does from YouTube ads. But it is a valuable tactic. That doesn't mean you have to only pay. It doesn't mean you have to sink lots and lots and lots of money, but it can be useful. So just be prepared to pay a little bit of money in order to get a little bit of a boost in your social media performance. So bringing everything together, we have defined our audience and worked out what they are interested in. We've worked out what our business goals are, and we've defined them more specifically than just get more sales. We've worked out which social platforms that we should be using. We've worked out what our tone of voice should be, and we've looked at what success is and how to measure it. And it's really important to measure that success and work out, are we succeeding or not? Because if you don't measure, you'll never know whether what you're doing is on the right track. So after that is a big section. Have we got any more questions? Looks like we do. Murtaza has asked, how do we convert our audience into customers or loyal customers? So converting your audience is a bit of a tricky topic. It depends on who your audience is for a start. It depends on what they're there for. A good rule of thumb is that you want them to be interested and engaged with your business before they even think about buying. So post about things that aren't directly salesy. For example, again, I'm going to use the example of coats for dogs because that's just in my head. If I was running a social media platform for a business that sold accessories for dogs, I wouldn't post about those accessories that much. I would post about how to look after dogs and things like that, because that means that my customers, my audience, is getting something really useful from my page. And they're going to keep coming back and coming back and coming back for that really useful advice. And so when it comes time to buy a product for their pet, they will hopefully remember my business because they've thought, oh, well, that business has given me loads of useful advice. I really trust them. That is a really good way of going about things. So try and build that trust by providing your audience with something really useful. Sharose has asked tips for creating social media strategies for clients as a digital marketing agency. Sharose, it's exactly the same as what we've just gone through. You just need to do a different strategy for each client. It can actually be easier. I've found it easier to do strategies for my clients than I do for myself. Because I can look at it from the outside. So, but it's the same process. You need to go through the same things. You need to work out the audience. You need to work out where they are online, what social networks will be the right fit for them. It's no different, though, if you're doing them for clients than if you're doing them for yourself. And Sharose as well, strategies for managing a celebrities page on Instagram. So that's a very complicated topic. I don't think I'm going to have time to answer it fully, I'm afraid, Sharose, just because we've not got a lot of time left. The really important thing there will be to understand who that celebrity is as a person, what their personality is, but also what is it that their audience really wants from them? What is it that they would really benefit from? Why do people like that celebrity? Because if you can work that out, you can start providing them with more of what they are looking for. So that's going to be really important. Try and work out, why are people interested in that celebrity? Why do people love that celebrity? So that you can then provide them with the things that they want. Francois just let me know that the webinar I think I was talking about earlier is called Build Your Personal Brand Online. That will be really useful for a lot of the questions that we've just had there. So Murtaza and Sharose, I think that will be really useful for you guys. What Build Your Personal Brand Online is something that you could take a look at, hopefully benefit from. So thank you for those questions. Let's look now at a few tips and tricks for best practice on social media. So what sort of content should you be sharing? There are a whole bunch of different options here. Product announcements, non-promotional content, so things like behind the scenes content, insights. It's my view that 80% of what you post should not be product or brand related. 80% of what you post should be nothing to do with your product. It should be useful advice, tips, help, things that your audience will really engage with. You think about the social accounts that you follow. How many of them do you follow because you just like hearing about the product? There's probably not very many, but there are plenty of accounts that I follow because I like the content that they post. So it is all about that content. But also we can think about, right, tips or tricks for using the product. That's still useful. It's still valuable. Really do think, though, about making sure it is valuable to your audience. Responses, make sure that you're engaging with your customers wherever possible. Operational content as well. If you've got a job opening, that can be worth putting on social media. And of course, recurring content. Do you have a sale on? Do you have discounts on? If you do have a sale on, that's always worth promoting. Because people like getting discounts. So make sure you are promoting that repeatedly on social media. Think about getting your customers to share things for you. That's called user-generated content. An example would be Coca-Cola had the Names on Bottles campaign, where each bottle of Coca-Cola or Diet Coke would have a Coca-Cola for Jeremy or Jeffrey or Tyrone or things like that. So that's a really good example of user-generated content, because people would get that bottle that had their name on it, and then they put it on social media, providing them with free advertising. So think about how maybe you could encourage your audience to create content for you and share that experience. Tips for creating really great content. Make sure you're using great graphics. We are visual people. We do like seeing images. If you can use images wherever possible, that's likely to get more traction. Canva is a really good tool for that. Canva.com, Canva. You can use that to take pretty much anything and make it into a really great visual. It's really easy to use, so do check out Canva. Make sure that your spelling and grammar is correct. There's another great tool called Grammarly. And Francois, I wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing these in the chat. And there's also some really great scheduling tools that you can use to manage multiple social media accounts. There are things like Hootsuite, Buffer, Later. These are all amazing tools that you can use to manage your accounts, to schedule your posts in advance, and it makes it a lot easier to run social media accounts. So you've hopefully got plenty of knowledge from today. So some homework goals for you. So things that you can do right now. Number one thing that I would like all of you to do is go and really think about what your goal is going to be on social media. What is it that you will hope to achieve? Then you can think about your tone of voice, your audience, and you can choose the right platforms to focus on. So really, really focus on those things. That's your homework that I'm setting you right now. We've got one last question break before we finish off, and I can see we've got one question from Amadou. I have my personal Facebook page. Now I am thinking to open a clothes shop. Should I create a business account and page for it, or can I just keep posting on my personal page? Definitely create a business account for it. I think Facebook actually could ban you for using a personal account for a business. I'm not 100% sure on that. They definitely used to do that. But certainly a business account is going to be loads better for your business. It's going to be way more helpful than just using your personal page. You're going to have a few different extra bits of functionality there as well. So definitely create a business account. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just another account that you'd have to log into. So it's definitely worth creating that business account, Amadou. Good question. Thank you for sharing that. So brilliant. That looks like everything. So what are your next steps? Actually, just before we go into that, I can see that Maxine's got another question that I've just seen pop up in the chat. Can you schedule stories? Yes, you can. Depends on the tool that you use. Later is a good tool for scheduling stories, Maxine. So yeah, you absolutely can schedule them. So yeah. Well, we're finishing off now. The next steps that you can take, remember that we do have that free one-to-one mentoring available from Google. So anybody who works for a small business or a charity in the UK is eligible for a free 1-hour mentoring session. You can sign up at g.co/UK mentoring. And then the only thing left for me to say is thank you. So I hope this has been useful for you all today. If you've got any feedback for us, if we've done a good job, if we've done a terrible job, let us know. We love getting feedback. The link there is in on the screen. goo.gul/digital garage feedback. That is where you can go and you can leave us feedback and let us know how we've done. But other than that, I think I'm just about over time, so I'm going to say goodbye to all of you. So thank you so much. Thank you for all of your comments. Thank you for all of your questions as well. It's really great to see such an engaged audience. I hope it's been useful for you all. Big thank you to Francois. Make sure you're saying thank you to him as well, because he's done a fantastic job as a moderator, and I'm sure you'd all agree with that. So big thank you to Francois. And I hopefully will see you again on another Digital Garage session in the future. So thanks again, everyone. Take care and bye-bye.